My name is Margaret, 62 years old, and I've lived my whole life by a simple philosophy: let things be. I love my husband, raise 2 kids, work part-time at the town library, and spend every evening with a rose bed and an old novel. I've never chased after flashy things. I've never sought excitement. I thought that was enough. But last fall, things changed. And if you're listening, please don't make the same mistake I did. It was a light rain that day. Not a torrential downpour, just a quiet rain that blanketed everything in a blanket of grey, holding its breath. I sat in my car, watching the wipers rhythmically sweep across the windshield. Gently, steadily. We had just left a quarterly meeting at the Oak Ridge Conference Center, the kind of boring corporate event with dry chicken and cold coffee. My husband Henry couldn't make it because he had a dentist appointment. Instead, his boss offered to drive me home. "We live close together," he said, "and I need someone to talk to." His name was Julian Thatcher, early 60s, probably only a couple of years older than me. Tall with neatly trimmed silver hair, eyes that seemed to quietly observe everything without making a fuss. I had known Julian for a long time through Henry. They had worked together for nearly 20 years, but we had only exchanged pleasantries. A slight smile, a nod at the conference table. But that day, something was different. His car smelled of cedar wood, mixed with mint. The leather seats were warm. We talked about trivial things. The rain was so depressing, the meetings were so long, the time seemed to pass so quickly. Then Julian said, not looking at me, just glancing over, "You have a strange peace about you." I smiled, unsure how to respond. I try to do that. It's not always easy. He chuckled, turning his eyes back to the rain-soaked road. No one can be at peace forever. We walked silently past the park, where I used to take my children when they were little. Old memories tapped quietly on my heart, like rain on the roof of the car. Suddenly, Julian asked, "Have you ever thought about what will happen next?" "What do you mean?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. "After the children are grown, after work is no longer a goal, after the house becomes too quiet." I hesitated. "Sometimes, but I usually just look at the present." Julian nodded. "I used to." His voice changed, no longer calm, but with a heavy tone. I looked over and saw that his eyes were still fixed on the road ahead, but his expression was different. Not sad, but tired, old, lonely. 3 years ago, he said softly, "I lost Eleanor." My heart sank. I heard Henry mention it. "My condolences." Julian nodded, not looking at me. You know, when someone's been part of the rhythm of your life for so long, when they're gone, the whole song seems out of tune. I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing. Sometimes silence is kinder than comfort. The car stopped at a red light. For the first time, he turned to look at me. Not the look of a boss looking at his best friend's wife. Not even a polite look. But something deeper, more genuine. I envy Henry," he said. I was speechless. Jealous. Why? Because he still has you. No flirting. No flirting, no show. Just a statement. Too real. I started to reply, but the light turned green and the car started moving again. The words I was about to say were swallowed. We were silent the rest of the way. When he stopped in front of my house, the rain had stopped. Only the sound of water dripping from the branches onto the porch was left. I reached for the door, trying to think of a way to make the atmosphere less awkward. But then Julian spoke. "Can I ask you something real?" I turned slowly. "Whatever it is." He looked me straight in the eye. "Do you ever feel invisible?" I let go of the doorknob. I could have laughed or walked away or made a joke to deflect, but I didn't. I just looked at Julian and nodded. He held out his hand, not touching me, just opening his palm to me. An unspoken invitation. I didn't take it. Not then. But I didn't turn away either. I couldn't sleep that night. Henry had gone to bed early, lying on his side, with his arm across his chest. Just like every night for the past 20 years. Everything was the same. The same house, the same lifestyle, the same husband, but my mind was restless. Julian's question kept repeating in my head. "Do you ever feel invisible?" I lay still, staring at the ceiling. The shadows of the trees through the window swayed like unspoken thoughts. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel happy or noticed. What I felt was more complicated. It wasn't lust. It wasn't even about Julian. It was about being seen, really seen, not as a wife or a mother or a neighbor who mowed the lawn, but as a woman. A full person. And it had been so long since anyone had seen me that way. The next morning, I followed my usual routine: coffee, toast, cat food, folding Henry's shirts from the dryer. But it all felt unfamiliar. As if someone had moved the furniture around a little, not too much, but enough that I kept bumping into the edges. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A text from Julian. "I hope I didn't embarrass you yesterday." I didn't mean to. I stared at the text for a long moment. Finally, I texted back. "No, I just didn't expect." He replied almost immediately. "Me too." Just 2 words. But they weighed more than any long paragraph. We didn't text again for a few days. I thought it would stop there, a strange moment in the car, slowly washed away by time. But no, it didn't fade. On the contrary, it stuck with me. The next week, Henry reminded me, "Julian invited some people over for dinner this weekend." He added, buttering his toast. "You can come too." I kept my face neutral. "Sounds good." Henry sipped his coffee, then said slowly, "He's changed a lot since Eleanor died. He's probably trying to reconnect with everyone." I nodded, saying nothing more. That Saturday evening, Julian's house was not extravagant, but it was refined. Books on wooden shelves, framed vinyl records on the walls, soft yellow lighting. When Henry and I arrived, Julian opened the door. A navy blue sweater over a white shirt, the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned arms. His face was calm and expressionless, but his eyes lingered on me a little longer than usual. The evening passed in a haze of laughter and the faint scent of alcohol. I chatted with a few of Henry's co-workers, complimented the appetizers, helped clean up the kitchen. Everything was perfectly normal, but I could feel his eyes on me, not a furtive stare. More like an expectation, as if he were listening to me breathe. After dessert, I stepped out onto the back balcony. The night air was cool, the garden lights casting a dim glow through the trees. I leaned against the railing, breathing in the scent of damp leaves. "I figured I'd find you here," Julian said behind me. I didn't turn around. "I just need some air." He stepped forward, keeping a comfortable distance. "You seem preoccupied with something." I smiled softly. "You could call it that." Julian looked straight at me. "I meant what I said, about you having a peaceful presence, but I saw something else." I turned. "What?" "A woman who is carrying a lot, but not letting anyone see it." I didn't answer, because I couldn't. For years, I had hidden the deepest parts of myself. My dreams, my regrets, my fragile desires. I wrapped them in the fabric of reality and responsibility. I told myself they didn't matter anymore. But in that moment, under the soft light next to Julian, I felt them stirring again. He turned to me gently. "You deserve more than invisibility." The words shouldn't have meant anything to me. I had a good life, a loving husband, 2 loving children, a house full of memories. But I felt tears welling up. Unexpectedly. I should go inside," I whispered. Julian didn't grab my hand, didn't come closer, just nodded. And before I stepped through the sliding glass doors, I heard him speak so softly, I almost missed it. "You don't have to disappear just because you're loved." That was the moment the ground shook beneath my feet. Slyly, but permanently. I spent the next week like a sleepwalker. Every movement felt right, but my mind was elsewhere. Henry noticed I was quieter than usual, but he thought I had a cold or age or hormones. We'd been married long enough to notice changes in each other, but not always understand why. I didn't explain. How could I couldn't stop thinking about Julian's words. "You don't have to disappear just because you're loved." The words stuck with me, following me into the laundry room, whispering while I watered the plants and touching my mind as I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling. I didn't plan anything. I didn't look for trouble. But something inside me was moved, not broken, not wrong, just stirred up. And maybe it's been too quiet for too long. Midweek, I stop by the supermarket. While I'm debating between 2 grapes in the produce aisle, a familiar voice calls out from behind me. "Try the red ones, less sour." I turn around. It's Julian carrying a basket and a bag of apples. We both smile, not confused exactly, just knowing. "I didn't expect to see you here," I say. "I always go to the market on Wednesdays. Less people, no parking." I laugh. "Smart." Another pause. But this time it's different. No longer formal, no longer random. Julian leans toward me, his voice low. "Would you like to get a coffee? Just a chat?" My heart beats faster. He shrugs. "Oh, anytime. No pressure. Just a conversation." I should have said no. I knew, but I didn't. We went to a small coffee shop near the park. The kind of cozy place with mismatched tables and chairs, chalkboard menus, the smell of fresh-baked goods in the air. We sat by the window. Julian ordered black coffee. I ordered herbal tea. And we talked. Not about Henry, not about the office, just about life. Julian talked about the loneliness in the house after Eleanor died, about the mornings he'd woken up and momentarily forgot she wasn't there, only to be hit back by the emptiness. I listened. Not as his friend's wife, not as a neighbor, but as a woman sitting across from a man. opening up. It was my turn to say something I hadn't expected. I think in my whole life, I've never allowed myself to want anything unreasonable. Julian looked at me gently. That sounds exhausting. It is, I whispered. We sat there, silently, watching the rain begin to fall outside the window. Passers-by hurried by, heads bowed, each hiding in his own world. Then Julian asked softly, "Can you let me see you again? Just for coffee, nothing more." I looked into his eyes. There was no demand, no expectation, just a quiet waiting. My heart was pounding in my throat. "Okay," I said, "just coffee." But we both knew it wouldn't be just coffee, not out of desire, not out of a desire to hurt anyone, but because something has begun. A gentle pull between two people who have been living for so long, living as if they were whole. But they were not. If you have ever sat across from someone and suddenly realized you were living like a shadow, maybe you're also waiting for someone to see you clearly. I returned home. Henry was in the garage fiddling with a leaky garden hose. He waved at me from the open door, his smile unchanged. Everything was the same from the outside. I cooked dinner. We watched the news. I kissed him goodnight. But as I lay in bed that night, I realized something I didn't want to admit. I wasn't waiting for Julian to text me anymore. I hoped he would. The next day, Thursday, the text came. "Julian Thatcher, are you free tomorrow morning? I know a quiet place by the lake. Good coffee. No pressure." I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the screen. The past week had passed slowly, like an unanswered question, and now the answer was asking me back. I typed yes and sent it before I could think about it. The next morning, I told Henry I was going to the farmer's market. He didn't suspect a thing. He was busy getting ready for a meeting, half-conscious on his phone. I walked him to his car, waving from the porch steps, feeling the familiar repetition of life wrap around me like a damp woolen scarf. Then I got in my car and drove off in the opposite direction. Have you ever taken a new road, not because you wanted to betray someone, but because you just wanted to know what else you could feel? If you understand that feeling, leave The cafe was hidden like a secret near the lake, small, hushed, and nearly empty that Friday morning. Eli was already there when I arrived, sitting quietly by the window. His face lifted slightly as I walked in. No smile, just something that said, "I see you." I still do. I slid into the chair across from him. For a while, we just sat there in the soft music of silence cups, gently clinking, the wind brushing against the glass panes. Then he broke the stillness with a simple, "Thanks for coming." I nodded, eyes steady on his, though my throat tightened. We talked about everything and nothing at all, about how time plays tricks, about how you can grow older and still carry the same ache to be understood, to be seen, not just looked at. Not a word about us, no reaching across the table, no fingers brushing. But something passed between us that no one else would ever quite understand. When we stepped outside, he walked me to my car. I opened the door, slid my bag inside, but lingered. The sun had just begun its climb, turning the lake into liquid gold. His jacket danced a little in the wind. He looked at me, eyes careful. "What are you thinking?" he asked. I took a breath. And maybe for the first time, I told the whole truth. I think I've lived most of my life doing the right things. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the life Daniel and I built, of our children, our home. But I stopped asking what I wanted somewhere along the way. And now, here I am, sitting with someone who saw what I was missing before I did. He stepped just a little closer. But still, no touch. Just the shared weight of something unsaid. I never meant to hurt Daniel, I whispered. I know, Eli said quietly. Neither did I. But we can't pretend this didn't mean something. No, I said, it mattered. Then came silence again. Not cold, not empty, just final. And into that hush, I said what I hadn't even admitted to myself. I need to go home. I need to find who I am again. And I need to decide what I'm willing to lose. To become her. He nodded. There was no sadness in it. Just a kind of respect. I got into the car, started the engine. As I pulled away, I glanced into the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, hands in his coat pockets, watching me leave. He didn't chase me, didn't wave, didn't call out. He just let me go. That evening, I sat with Daniel on the back porch. The sky was bathed in soft pastels, the hush of a day ending. He was rambling about a coworker named Clara and some missing folders. I wasn't really listening. At one point, I turned to him. Daniel, I said, more seriously than I meant to. He looked over, caught off guard. Do you think I've changed? His brows furrowed. Changed? Since the kids moved out? Since we stopped being busy? Since we got older? He looked out at the trees for a long moment before replying. Maybe. But so have I. Don't we all? I nodded, then reached for his hand. If I disappeared a little, I asked, would you notice? His eyes changed just slightly. But enough. I'd notice, he said. And he squeezed my hand. Something passed between us then. Not fireworks, not an epiphany. Just a kind of quiet truth. Maybe it was the beginning of something long overdue, a reckoning, or perhaps just a return. That night, I didn't dream of Eli. I didn't replay cafe silences or lakeside glances. I thought about the woman I once was, and the one I still had time to become. Have you listened to this far? If there is a part of the story that makes your heart flutter, leave it in the comments. Let us, love and tears, know that you are still here, quietly empathizing and listening with us. And don't hesitate to share. Have you ever felt like you lost yourself? And if so, how did you find that person again? See you in the next story where pain is told with love.